Hello, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International.
And I'm CJ Hero. Welcome to the program. On tonight's headlines.
People barricaded in a Yangon neighborhood overnight said that security forces searched their homes room by room for anti-coup protesters targeting apartments flying the flag of Aung San Suu Kyi's party.
The OECD ups its global growth forecast sharply for 2021 as vaccines and a huge U.S. stimulus program greatly improve economic prospects.
And China has launched a health certificate program for Chinese international travelers, leading the world in plans for so-called virus passports.
Meanwhile, the WHO advises against mandating vaccine passports for international travel.
Vaccination as a requirement for travel is not advised because
First, the United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres called for the safe release of hundreds of Myanmar protesters barricaded inside apartment complexes in Yangon, where security forces are violently cracking down on anti-junta demonstrations. According to his spokesman, the UN said Monday that Myanmar security forces had cordoned some 200 peaceful protesters in Yangon, voicing concern about their safety and demanding they be allowed to leave. Take a look.
And on that, I just want to add that the Secretary General himself, as you've been asking me, is following the developments in Myanmar very closely, notably in the Samcheong district of Yangon, where hundreds of peaceful protesters have been barricaded inside residential apartment complexes for hours. He calls for maximum restraint and urges for the safe release of all without violence or arrests. Many of those trapped are women who were peacefully marching in commemoration of International Women's Day. We again call on all to respect the rights of freedom of assembly and expression of the people in Myanmar as they demonstrate peacefully and express their hopes and desires for the future of their country. Last note on Myanmar, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that the situation in the country remains dire and that aid operations have been disrupted by the coup. More than 1 million people identified at the beginning of the year are as needing assistance, including more than 350,000 internally displaced people still need help.
He also reported that the Secretary General had received a letter from a special envoy to the UN appointed by a committee representing Myanmar's parliament, which was forced underground following the coup. The envoy, who goes only by the name Dr. Sasa, asked Guterres in the letter, which was obtained by AFP, to call on the Security Council to help protect the people of Myanmar from further human rights violations. He also asked for robust, targeted sanctions, not only on military leaders, but on military enterprises and assets. The missive, dated March 4, called for a total arms embargo against the military to ensure that more weapons do not get into areas already suffering military offensives. Mr. Dujarric said that UN officials, including its special envoy on Myanmar, Christine Schreiner-Bergener, have been in contact with elected parliamentarians as part of ongoing contacts with key stakeholders.
Staying in Myanmar, people barricaded in a Yangon neighborhood overnight said Tuesday that security forces searched their homes room by room for anti-coup protesters, targeting apartments flying the flag of Aung San Suu Kyi's party. Security forces had sealed off a block of streets with around 200 protesters still inside, according to the UN Rights Office, prompting alarm from diplomatic missions and calls for their safe release. Security forces started searching apartments after a nightly internet shutdown blanketed the country at 1 a.m. local time, residents told AFP, particularly those flying the red and gold flag of Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy party on their balconies. One resident said her home, which did not have any protesters hiding inside, was searched. By dawn, security forces forces appear to have retreated, allowing some protesters to escape from the area. Sanchong, a bustling township known for its cafes, bars and restaurants, has transformed since the protests began with makeshift barricades of bamboo, sandbags, tables and barbed wire set up by protesters in an effort to slow security forces.
Earlier, Eagle Broadcasting Corp was able to talk to the Honorable Eduardo E. Capunan Jr., the Philippine ambassador to Myanmar, where he updated us about the situation of our Filipino community there. Let's listen in.
Well, so far, ang overall condition dito sa Myanmar is that almost every day may rally against the military regime. And almost every day may dispersal. And when that happens, siyempre nagkakagulo sa kalsada. But what we're trying to do now is we have organized the Filipinos here into townships, no? Kung saan nalalaman natin kung ano nangyayari sa mga townships na nagkakaroon ng mga mass actions. And then the Philippine leaders doon, nakakapagbigay ko ng feedback sa embassy kung may Pilipino bang nadamay or kung mayroong mga Pilipino nagkaroon ng problema because of the events that's going on. So the general situation is not so good, but so far, hindi po ito delikado para sa mga Pilipino because ang gobyerno po ng militar ng Myanmar, they are also so sensitive about hurting foreign nationals. Kasi ang international opinion is very important to them. Kaya medyo nagdadahan-dahan sila dyan. And in the near future, I don't see any danger for Filipinos except na kung mawalan sila ng access sa pagkain kasi nagkaroon na nag-shutdown yung mga stores, hindi sila magkaroon ng access sa hospital. Then to us in the Department of Foreign Affairs, to us, this is going to be a critical situation where we will be forced to evacuate everybody already. But as of now, evacuation namin is still connected with the COVID pandemic. But of course, because of the situation naman ngayon, may mga Pilipino na nawala na rin ng trabaho and of course, kailangan makauwi na rin sila. So yun po ang laman ng repatriation flights natin. So sa March 17, meron po kami isang repatriation flight that will transport Filipinos from Myanmar and also from Cambodia. So ang aeroplano pupunta ng Myanmar, ng Cambodia at saka pupunta ng Pilipinas. Ganun po ang current situation ngayon.
When it comes to the pandemic naman po, kumusta naman po ang ating mga kababayan po dyan?
Wala tayong history ngayon ng may naapektuhan na kababayan natin. Mukhang mas maingat ang Pilipino sa pag-alaga sa sarili nila. So, none-reported so far sa mga Pilipino. But of course, because of that COVID case, maraming businesses na nag-close down kaya nagkaroon ng situation where we needed to evacuate the Filipinos back to the Philippines.
Yes, with the hospitals, apektado po ba ang ating mga hospital po dyan? At yung mga health workers po, nakita po natin, medyo nag-i-strike din po sila. Ano po?
Yes, isa yan sa mga tinitingnan natin kasi we are expecting an upward movement of COVID-19 cases here because of that. Kasi hindi na masyadong efficient ang testing nila. And of course, pagka nagrarally sila, wala ng social distancing. And we are expecting na mag-spike capital. So we are continuing our repatriation.
Alam naman po natin na vaccination is going on around the world na po. Kumusta naman po sa Myanmar? Na-disrupt po ba?
Medyo natigil ang vaccination dito. Pero initially, nung dumating mga vaccines dito, that was during the previous government. So some frontliners did receive vaccines, but after the takeover of the military government, medyo nakalimutan na. In fact, we have inquired from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs ng Myanmar because they promised only diplomat that they will be receiving vaccine from here. So wala pa pong sagot sa amin ngayon. So it looks like there are major changes in the governmental structure. Mukhang hindi pa rin maliwanag kung anong mga actions nila.
Wala naman pong apektadong Pilipino sa mga nasaktan po na alam naman po natin na meron sa media nire-report nila may mga nasaktan dahil nga sa kaguluhan. Wala naman pong affected na Pilipino po sa kaguluhan po dyan.
So far, wala pa naman po. And we are active in monitoring itong mga events na ito. May marinig na kami putok. Nagtatawag na kami, wala pa kayo feedback yan. So, the Department of Foreign Affairs is really very active and very supportive of our efforts to take care of the welfare of the Filipinos here.
How is the Philippine-Myanmar relations? Foreign Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. has called for the immediate release of civil leader Aung San Suu Kyi and a complete return to the country's existing state of affairs. Pero ang ating presidential spokesperson po has insisted on that this is an internal matter and that the Philippines should not meddle in the situation right now.
Before the military takeover, the relationship between the Philippines and Myanmar was getting very close already. So the statement of our foreign secretary is that if possible to restore the status quo ante. Whatever it is that's going on now, concerning Myanmar government yun, and the Myanmar people. But to expedite things, the request of our foreign secretary is ibalik sa dati. Yun yung status quo ante, balik sa dati. And of course, ang dati is medyo malakas ang influence ng military sa gobyerno. And hindi lang namin gustong baguhin mo na yun. Let the people of Myanmar act on it, decide on it, and solve the problem. Yun po ang gist ng sinasabi ni Secretary Locsin po. Medyo nasa we are trying our best to normalize it, but of course, there are a lot of other pressures that needs to be addressed. Like for example, sabi nga ni Secretary Locsin is restore the status quo ante, free Aung San Suu Kyi, end those detained, which I don't see na magagawa kaagad ngayon. So with those things, na mga preconditions, I don't think normalization will be a fast process. It could take a little time, but definitely the Philippines is moving towards that direction. And so is ASEAN. ASEAN is also moving towards that direction.
Yes. Do we have Philippines? Do we have some business investments in Myanmar?
Meron po, but not so much. But the latest that I attended dito is last year, yung nag-invest dito ang Ayala Corporation ng mga $248 million. And of course, there are other businesses here like mga pharmaceutical firms. And then Filipino heads are still here. In fact, I was just talking to one of them yesterday, and he was asking me for my advice kung anong gagawin niya. Pero na-evacuate niya na lang ang mga Pilipino niya, naiwan na lang puro Myanmar nationals na nagtatrabaho sa kanila. So, business-wise, we are anticipating that the business here will really go down. In fact, we have here a survey from Fitch Solutions, Country Risk and Industry Research. Sasabi nila na dinowngrade nila ang economic forecast nila for Myanmar to 2% versus the initial forecast of 5.6%. So ganun po kalaki ang ina-anticipate na pagbagsak ng negosyo. And also of course, just recently, about yesterday, even mga trade unions, mga tawag dito mga organisasyon na katulad ng mga Chamber of Commerce, no? Medyo naapektuhan na rin. So, yun po ang nangyayari. And because of this, we're anticipating na talagang babagsak ang ekonomiya Ang personal opinion ko po is medyo, it will take a little time to normalize the situation. Although, of course, if you have to analyze the statement by the military leadership now, ang sabi nila is, within 1 year, ibabalik nila sa democratic process ang Myanmar. Kasi isa sa mga pinakamalaking ina-allege nila is that November of massive fraud.
Yes.
So what they want to do is to review the electoral procedures and processes and call for an election, a multi-party election. And kung sino man manalo, ibabalik nila sa landas ang Myanmar. So to its move towards democracy. So kung papaniwalaan po natin yon, ang anticipation namin is a year or so ang magiging epekto nito because it looks like ang mga rallies time na nag-object sa military rule, mukhang hindi rin namin nakikita ng humihina sila. In fact, lumalakas na lumalakas. And nagiging widespread habang dumadami patay.
Yes.
Okay, maraming salamat po sa pagkakataon ito because I really wanted to convey this message to the families ng mga Pilipino dito na asahan po ninyo na ang Department of Foreign Affairs, katulong ang OWA, ang Department of Labor, are very much concerned about this situation here. And they have so far supported the Embassy of the Philippines here in Yangon in its effort really to move towards the safety of the Filipinos. So far, wala pa po tayong insidente na may napahamak. Pero sabi namin sa mga Pilipino, it will continue to be so kung sana wag muna kayong mag-declare ng inyong opinion about this in public, about this thing in public, which I think the Filipinos are doing. And of course, pasalamat din ako sa kooperasyon ng mga Pilipino dito because when we organized them, they have been so active also reporting to the embassy developments sa kanilang mga respective areas of responsibility. And so far yun po pinanghahawakan namin. And of course also, meron din kaming consultation with the PhilCom, Filipino community here, should the need arise na magkaroon ng actions na kailangan gawin. So, as of now, ang weekly namin in-schedule yung dialogue with the PhilCom, which is actively participated in by the Filipino community.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your time. At thank you very much din po for taking care of our Filipino community over there. Please stay safe and you take care po. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat din po sa pagbigay niyo ng pagkataong ito para ma-abiso ko rin mga pamilya ng mga Pilipino dito dyan sa Pilipinas.
Eagle News will be right back. Stay tuned.
This portion is brought to you by Canriv Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Services offered: supply and installation of elevators, escalators, air conditioners, ventilators, jet towel, hand dryers, generators, access control system, factory automation, and modernization. For more info, please contact Ami Kanke at 0915-263-7198 or 0998-900-3224.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business.
Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration
to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights. Sharpen your instincts for smart decision making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation,
Social entrepreneurship.
and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Welcome back to the news. 2 villages and 2 buildings in the city of Manila will be under lockdown starting 12:01 a.m. of Thursday until 11:59 p.m. Sunday due to rising coronavirus disease infections. Manila Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Domagoso announced in a live Facebook update on Tuesday that based on Manila Health Department data, Malate Bayview Mansion in Adriatico Street and Hop Inn Hotel in MH Del Pilar Street of Barangay 699. Malate has 17 COVID-19 cases. Barangay 351 in San Lazaro, Tayuman has 12. And Barangay 725, also in Malate, has 14. Domagoso signed Executive Order number 06 on Tuesday, declaring certain barangays of portion thereof of the city as critical zone per zoning containment strategy in order to provide rapid response operation to contain the resurgence and spread of COVID-19. EO6 will pave the way for disease surveillance and massive contact tracing and verification or testing and rapid risk assessment in the said areas. Domagoso said the city will be strict in the implementation of the lockdowns, stating that only authorized persons outside of residence will be allowed to go out of their homes.
Meanwhile, President Duterte on Monday night said Vice President Leni Robredo's call for a review of Sinovac's CoronaVac vaccine by the Health Technology Assessment Council, or HTAC, created doubt just as the government was boosting public confidence in the vaccines. In a pre-recorded public address, the president said the Vice President Robredo did the public a disservice by supposedly making it appear that the government was skipping regulatory processes for vaccines. He also insisted that the HTAC review is only recommendatory and is not required before the government can roll out the vaccines. Take a look.
Mr. President, I am reading Section 34 po of the Universal Healthcare Law. The health technology assessment process shall be institutionalized as a fair and transparent priority-setting mechanism that shall be recommendatory to the DOH and PhilHealth for the development of policies and programs, regulations, and determination of a range of entitlements such as drugs, medicines, pharmaceutical products, and other devices, procedure and services as provided for under this Act, provided that investments on any health technology or development of any benefit package by the DOH and PhilHealth shall be based upon positive recommendations of the HTA, provided further that despite having undergone the HTA process, all health technology intervention or benefits package shall be subjected to periodic review, provided furthermore that the health technology assessment may have substantial impact on the initial coverage decision by the DOH or PhilHealth, and provided finally that the HTA process shall adhere to the principle of ethical soundness, inclusiveness, and preferential regard for the underserved, evidence-based, and scientific defensibility, transparency, accountability, efficiency, enforceability, and availability of remedies and due process.
Ang sabi ko na ang ginawa niyang disservice to the people is, nung sinabi niya, hindi niya sinabi na recommendatory. Napakaakala niya lahat ng proseso recommendatory. Lahat na lang ng gawin natin dito, maghanap siya ng, hindi niya binasa ang batas na recommendatory lang ang HTAC. If the opinion is sought by the Secretary of Justice and by other in the medical profession, in government, Ngayon, we were fighting because time was of the essence. We were fighting against the tide of non-believers na huwag kayong matakot, ganito. Now here comes the statement na hindi niya binasa ang kompleto ang batas with just a simple statement. Magkikreate ka ng doubt. And we were doing everything, convincing, spending most of our time convincing the people that it is safe ang bakuna. Doon ako, hindi ako napikon. Hindi ako mapikon kaya hindi ko sarili ito. Ang akin, medyo galit ako for coming with a half-truth. Basahin mo kalahati lang, yung recommendatory power lang, hindi na kinuha dahil hindi na nga kailangan. So yung imbes makatulong si Vice President, she muddled up everything. Thereby, I said, creating an uncertainty and doubt in the minds of the people. So I hope that next time, kung wala naman siyang masabi na tama, she just would maybe shut up.
In other news, children go back to classrooms in a London primary school for the first time in 2 months, with the government beginning to ease coronavirus restrictions as a mass vaccination drive ramps up. We have Ariane Celestine of our EBC UK Bureau with that report. Ariane.
Hi, here is my update in the United Kingdom. Millions of children returned to school in England on Monday for the first time in 2 months, with the government beginning to ease coronavirus restrictions as a mass vaccination drive ramps up. The resumption of classroom teaching was the first step on a path which the government hopes will see life return to normal by late June, after a wrenching crisis that has seen Britain endure one of the world's worst death tolls from COVID-19. Also on Monday, hundreds of thousands of care home residents in England were able to start getting indoor visits from a designated friend or relative. And two friends can now meet each other outdoors. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that the reopening of schools marks a truly national effort to beat this virus. He said that while only a small relaxation of the rules, the reopening will bring joy and relief to families after months of restrictions since England entered its third lockdown on January 5th, following a winter surge in infections. The next easing is due on March 29, when outdoor gatherings will be allowed for up to 6 people or 2 households. And outdoor sports such as tennis, basketball, and golf can resume. Throughout the latest lockdown, schools have remained open to children of key workers and the most vulnerable. But all the other youngsters have been at home, causing a headache for working parents and fears about the long-term effects on children's learning and mental health. Students aged 5 to 11 went to the classroom on Monday, with a staggered return over the coming week for secondary school students aged 11 to 18. Returning students face regular testing to curb the spread of infection, while older children will have to wear face masks in class until at least April. The easing comes as around 23 million people in Britain have received at least a first vaccination jab, helping to bring down case numbers and ease pressure on hospitals.
So 11:30 through to... Come straight over. Perfect. Yeah, tell them to come over here and I'll do them immediately. And then...
Reporting from the United Kingdom, I am Ariane Celestino, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Ariane. Meanwhile, in the U.S., the CDC issued new guidelines on vaccinated people. People who have been fully vaccinated against the coronavirus can gather indoors unmasked with others who have been vaccinated. Let's listen in.
CDC recommends that fully vaccinated people can visit with other fully vaccinated people in small gatherings indoors without wearing masks or physical distancing. Remember, here we are talking about private settings where everyone is vaccinated. CDC recommends that fully vaccinated people can visit with unvaccinated people from one other household indoors without wearing masks or physical distancing, as long as the unvaccinated people and any unvaccinated members of their household are not at high risk for severe COVID-19 disease. CDC's new guidance also recommends that fully vaccinated people do not need quarantine or get tested following a known exposure to someone with COVID-19 as long as they are asymptomatic. Therefore, everyone, whether vaccinated or not, should continue to avoid medium and large-sized gatherings as well as non-essential travel, and when in public spaces, should continue to wear a well-fitted mask, physically distance, and follow other public health measures to protect themselves and others.
Meanwhile, let's join Alfred Asenas of our EBC Hawaii Bureau as he takes his family in a drive-through vaccination and shares his first-hand experience of the entire process.
Our journey to the vaccine actually began a couple of weeks prior by going online to set up an appointment, as walk-ins are not yet available at this time. On the day of our appointment, we drove up to the check-in point to make sure our names were on the list before proceeding further. So I'm taking my first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine today here in Central Oahu. We'll see how this works. And guess who else is with me? That's right. The rest of the team. So we'll see what happens after this. So the only way to find out the effects of this shot is to just go through the motion and figure it out for myself. So here we go.
Relax your arm for me.
All right, I gotta relax the arm, just like as if I were taking a flu shot. Nothing to it. Just just focus on my talking. And there you go. I'm done. One of two anyway. Thank you. Not surprisingly, some of us react differently to needles altogether.
How do you feel?
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I just don't like shots.
I know, but you're not gonna feel any like.
No,
is that
Band-Aid?
done?
Do you want it?
Thank
I'll
you.
go like
Here we go.
See, barely, right?
Yeah.
So we're approaching the front part of the waiting area after we took our first COVID-19 shots. If you see the smudge kind of on my windshield, it says 11:09. Actually, if you read it from the other side, that's the time we're allowed to drive off. That's the end of the 15-minute mark. Meanwhile, the rest of our team continue to do their part in protecting themselves against the virus. Reporting from Honolulu, Hawaii, Alfred Asenas, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
An Italian-Swiss pharmaceutical company has agreed to produce Russia's Sputnik V vaccine in Italy, the first such deal in the European Union, according to the trade body. The vaccine will be produced from July 2021 in pharma company Adian factories in Lombardy, northern Italy. A spokesman for the Italian-Russian Chamber of Commerce, Stefano Maggi, told AFP 10 million doses, he said, will be produced between July 1 and January 1 next year, he added, describing it as the first agreement on the European level for the production on EU territory of the Sputnik vaccine. Several European Union countries have already begun distributing Sputnik V, but it has yet to be approved by the bloc's medicines regulator. The EU has so far authorized 3 vaccines: the US-German Pfizer-BioNTech jab, US firm Moderna shot, and the British-Swedish AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. It's set to decide on the one-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine on March 11, while jabs by Novavax and CureVac are also under rolling review.
The makers of Russia's Sputnik V vaccine Tuesday demanded an apology from the EU's medicines regulator after a senior official warned member states against hastily authorizing the jab, comparing emergency rollouts to Russian roulette. Several EU countries have already begun distributing Sputnik V ahead of approval in the bloc, a move criticized by board chair of the European Medicines Agency, Krista Wertheimer-Hosch, on Monday. We demand a public apology from EMA's Krista Wertheimer-Hosch for her negative comments on EU states directly approving Sputnik V, the makers of the vaccine wrote on Twitter. Her comments raise serious questions about the possible political interference in the ongoing EMA, they said, adding that Russia's homegrown vaccine has been approved by 46 nations. Russia has said it is ready to provide jabs for 50 million Europeans as soon as Sputnik V gets the green light.
In other news, Lebanese protesters set up new roadblocks to vent anger over political inaction in the face of deepening poverty, but security forces managed to reopen some to traffic. The country has been mired in economic crisis, which has brought surging unemployment and spiraling prices, while the currency has plunged to a new low to the dollar on the black market. Yet the government, which formally resigned after a massive explosion in Beirut port last August that killed more than 200 people, has failed to agree on a new cabinet since. Roadblocks have become a near daily occurrence in the small Mediterranean country and lasted all day Monday, including in and out of Beirut. More than half of the population is living below the poverty line, and prices have soared as the Lebanese pound has lost more than 80% of its value.
At least 5 people died off the Canary Islands on board a rickety boat carrying dozens of African migrants, although only one body was recovered, according to Spanish officials on Tuesday. The Coast Guard discovered the body when they intercepted the boat, with those on board telling them another 4 people had died en route, but their bodies were no longer on the boat. Sources from the government's delegation in the Canary Islands told AFP. As well as the dead man, a total of 47 remaining migrants were taken to Arguinegin port on Gran Canaria, an emergency services spokeswoman said, adding that 2 were treated for slight injuries. Over the weekend, Spain's Salvamento Maritimo Coast Guard rescued 107 people off the Atlantic archipelago as the migrant surge showed no let-up following a year which saw 23,023 arrivals, a figure more than 8 times higher than in 2019.
In other news, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson expressed his highest admiration for Queen Elizabeth II after an explosive interview by her grandson Prince Harry and his wife Meghan aired on American television. And the White House said that it took courage for Prince Harry and his wife Meghan to speak out in that bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey. Take a look.
The best thing I can say is that I've always had the highest admiration for the Queen and the unifying role that she plays in our country and across the Commonwealth. And as for the rest, all other matters to do with the royal family, I've spent a long time now not commenting on royal family matters, and I don't intend to depart from that.
You know, Meghan Markle is a private citizen, and so is Harry at this point. For anyone to come forward and speak about their own struggles with mental health and tell their own personal story, that takes courage. That's certainly something the president believes, and he's talked about the importance of investing in a lot of these areas that they're committed to in the future as well. We aren't going to provide additional commentary from here on behalf of the president or others, given these are private citizens sharing their own story and their own struggles. And let me just reiterate that we have a strong and abiding relationship with the British people and a special partnership with the government of the United Kingdom on a range of issues, and that will continue.
Britain's Queen Elizabeth was in crisis talks Tuesday after Prince Harry and his wife Meghan lifted the lid on life inside Buckingham Palace with an explosive interview that reverberated around the world, according to local media, with revelations of suicidal thoughts, a racist relative, and an heir to the throne trapped by tradition. The sit-down with Oprah Winfrey by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex was the most startling since Harry's late mother, Princess Diana's own bombshell revelation in 1995. Harry described feeling really let down by his father, Prince Charles, who had stopped taking his phone calls for a time. He said both Charles, the Queen's heir, and Harry's elder brother, William, were trapped by the conventions of the monarchy. Meghan, a mixed-race former actress, described herself as naively unprepared for life in the royal family. She said she was denied help for a mental health crisis and said there was even official concern about the skin color of her unborn son. The couple both declined to name the royal involved, but Winfrey said Monday that Harry had told her the Queen, 94, and her 99-year-old husband, Prince Philip, were not part of those conversations.
Here in the Philippines now, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, on Tuesday reminded all local government units near the Taal volcano island to undertake necessary precautions due to the volcano's increased unrest. NDRRMC Deputy Spokesperson Mark Kashian Timbal, in a message to reporters, said preparations include the activation of evacuation sites and relief support, integrating COVID-19 protection protocols. On Tuesday morning, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, raised alert level 2 over the volcano, which means eruption could still happen. While evacuation is not recommended under this alert status, the public is advised against going to the Taal volcano island, which is classified as a permanent danger zone. The vicinities of the main crater, ang Daang Castilla fissure, must also remain strictly off limits to people. PHIVOLCS said there were 28 volcanic tremor episodes, 4 low-frequency volcanic earthquakes, and 1 hybrid earthquake at shallow depths of less than 1.5 kilometers beneath the TVI in the past 24 hours. Volcanic tremors had 3 to 17 minutes in duration. Increasing acidity was also observed, caused by sustained volcanic gas input into the shallow hydrothermal system that feeds into the lake, signifying degassing of magma intruded at depth during the January 2020 eruption.
The Pacaya volcano in Guatemala erupted, endangering a nearby town. Take a look.
Hemos tenido monitoreo en los últimos 3 meses, el volcán ha demostrado incrementos bastante altos. Sin embargo, hoy hubo una explosión bastante fuerte en horas del mediodía y por esa razón fue que cayó al filo de mediodía por una duración de unos 5 o 8 minutos, un poco de material, arena fina, entre fina, un poquito gruesa, ¿no?, en algunas partes.
A veces uno no se espera lo que el volcán pueda hacer en la noche y uno tal vez pueda que está muy dormido o no sé, o que se esté muy cansado y la verdad sí es muy peligroso. Hoy en la mañana estuvo bien fuerte, cayó mucha arena, demasiado grande y mi familia y yo estábamos ya casi para salir, pero después se calmó un poco y decidimos otra vez quedarnos.
And Eagle News will be right back. Please don't go away.
New BMEG Integra 3000 Plus Mixed Pellets and Grains. Gawa sa tamang timpla ng expertly formulated pellets at grains para sa magandang pangangatawan at tamang timbang ng inyong mga manok. BMEG Integra 3000 Plus. Iba ang laking Integra.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
This portion is brought to you by Kubert, an expert in air conditioning and electromechanical, also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Kubert, your ultimate MEPS air conditioning solutions.
Welcome back to the news. The OECD sharply hiked its 2021 global growth forecast on Tuesday as the deployment of coronavirus vaccines and a huge U.S. stimulus program greatly improved the economic prospects. The Paris-based Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development said it now expects the global economy to grow 5.6%, an increase of 1.4 percentage points from its December forecast. Global economic prospects have improved markedly in recent months, helped by the gradual deployment of effective vaccines, announcements of additional fiscal support in some countries, and signs that economies are coping better with measures to suppress the virus, it said in a report. The recovery will be largely led by the United States, thanks to President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion stimulus program, Lawrence Boone, chief economist of the OECD, told AFP. The OECD sees the U.S. economy growing 6.5% this year, a very sharp increase of 3.3 percentage points on its previous forecast, with the world as a whole returning to pre-pandemic output levels by mid-2021. But for the moment, only China, India, and Turkey have surpassed pre-pandemic levels, and the picture is very mixed elsewhere. Despite the improved global outlook, output and incomes in many countries will remain below the level expected prior to the pandemic at the end of 2022, said the OECD, which groups the world's most developed economies. It said the top policy priority is to deploy vaccines as quickly as possible to save lives as well as to speed economic recovery.
China has launched a health certificate program for Chinese international travelers, leading the world in plans for so-called virus passports. The digital certificate, which shows a user's vaccination status and virus test results, is available for Chinese citizens via a program on Chinese social media platform WeChat that was launched on Monday. A foreign ministry spokesman said the certificate is being rolled out to help promote world economic recovery and facilitate cross-border travel. However, although the certificate is meant for travel in and out of China, it's currently only available available for use by Chinese citizens and it's not yet mandatory. There's also no indication authorities in other countries will use it when Chinese travelers go abroad. Nevertheless, the certificate, which is also available in paper form, is thought to be the world's first known virus passport. The U.S. and Britain are among countries currently considering implementing similar permits. The European Union is also working on a vaccine green pass that would allow citizens to travel between member countries and abroad. China's program includes an encrypted QR code that allows each country to obtain a traveler's health information, according to state media Xinhua news agency. QR health codes within WeChat and other Chinese smartphone apps are already required to gain entry to domestic transport and many public spaces in China. The apps track a user's location and produce a green code synonymous with good health if a user has not been in close contact with a confirmed case or has not traveled to a virus hotspot. But the system has sparked privacy concerns and fears it marks an expansion of government surveillance.
Meanwhile, WHO Emergencies Chief Dr. Michael Ryan said vaccine passports for COVID-19 should not be used for international travel because he said, quote, there are real practical and ethical considerations for countries considering using vaccine certification as a condition for travel. Let's listen in.
It's not some the policy issue. There is an issue here around how we would certify vaccination. The use of certification of vaccination as a requirement for travel is not advised because, quite simply, vaccination is just not available enough around the world and is not available certainly on an equitable basis. But I think there are real practical and ethical considerations as well that countries will have to address because if access to vaccine is inequitous, then inequity and unfairness can be further branded into the system if we continue to make decisions on what people can and can't do, where they can and can't go on the basis of being vaccinated, when being vaccinated itself is not something that everyone has equal access to. And there are also people who, for whatever reason, cannot be vaccinated or do not wish to be vaccinated. So this is a very important societal discussion. I think we need to be very careful.
Singapore Airlines will begin trialing a coronavirus digital travel pass developed by aviation's industry body next week. According to the carrier, the first airline to pilot the scheme as the pandemic-hit sector seeks to recover. The app, developed by the International Air Transport Association, or IATA, will store information on passengers' health, including whether they have had virus tests or vaccines, to streamline travel as borders reopen. Singapore's flag carrier said it would offer travelers heading from the city-state to London between March 15 and the 28th the chance to participate in the pilot if they have a phone operating on the iOS system. Nick Kareen from the industry body said, quote, our partnership with Singapore Airlines for the first full deployment of the IATA Travel Pass will help get the world flying again. Participants in the pilot scheme will need to take pre-departure COVID-19 tests and will be able to view their results and whether they are confirmed to fly on the app. They will need to show their confirmed status in the app to check in staff before their flight. Several other airlines, including Air New Zealand and Emirates, have signed up to trial the app.
First, in our sports news, the starting ceremony for this month's Olympic torch relay will likely be held without spectators, a Japanese newspaper reports, but fans will still be able to line the route. The Yomiuri Shimbun Daily reported that organizers feared crowding at the March 25 event in Fukushima and would probably bar the 3,000 spectators initially planned. A spokesman for Tokyo 2020 organizers would say only that details of the relay grand start are still under discussion. The organizers have already laid out strict rules for the virus-delayed nationwide relay, which was called off in 2020 after the historic decision to postpone the games by a year. Cheering along the relay route will be strictly banned, and people are asked to only attend sections near their homes and avoid crowding. Mask wearing will be mandatory, and spectators are asked to offer support with applause and by using distributed goods rather than shouting or cheering. Portions of the relay could also be suspended if there is overcrowding. Organizers are battling persistent doubts about whether the games can be held safely this summer and have unveiled a rule book with various virus countermeasures. They are set to decide this month whether foreign fans will be able to attend, with limits on overall spectator numbers to be set next month.
Finally, in our news, there was a lot of joy on the court at Atlanta Georgia State Farm Arena. The host site of this year's NBA All-Star Game, Tenny Sumagi, caps off the highlights with Team LeBron winning over Team Durant. Take a look.
It was all smiles on the court for Team LeBron, especially for Bucks forward Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Greek Freak was perfect on the field, going 16 for 16 and finishing with 35 points to capture the Kobe Bryant MVP award in Sunday's All-Star Game.
Just having that award after the name after Kobe Bryant in my house, it's a great feeling. I wanted to win the one last year really bad, and I didn't have the chance to win because I felt like, I wanted to have that trophy in my house. And but this year I wasn't even, thinking about winning it, and I was just thinking about having fun. And I had the opportunity to, play well, and my team has played great, and I was able to win it. And just having, as I said, the trophy after Kobe Bryant. It's amazing, and I know he'll be happy, and and I know he'll be happy. I'm curious.
In other news, Steph Curry wins the three-point contest, Domantas Sabonis takes the Taco Bell Skills Challenge, and Anthony Simon leaves Atlanta as an NBA All-Star Slam Dunk champion.
It was awesome. I think having everything on in one night was different, but it was nice to have all the guys who are here in Atlanta on the court supporting each other, trying to bring some energy and having fun. And three-point shootout was obviously a big accomplishment in terms of that last rack and having fun with that, getting the job done, and then turn that into a win and some good shooting during the game. So a successful night all the way around.
It was fun. It was definitely fun. Since I'm here, why not? I said, let's do it again, and I'm glad I got it done this time. It's just a lot of fun to get out there. It's actually a good warm up before the game, and we'll see. We don't know.
Yeah, I was pretty nervous. Not gonna lie. But when I first did that first dunk, just to get my legs going, I knew that it was gonna be a good night for me, especially making my first chance in each and every dunk. That's nothing but God right there.
Congrats, Ann.
The NBA was able to raise $3 million in their support to fund HBCUs. Team LeBron raised more than $1 million to support the Thurgood Marshall College Fund.
A situation like the HBCUs, or give back to the communities that don't get the support that we wish that they would get more of. I think it's all beneficial. So, and all in all, obviously the league did a hell of a job of being able to put this together. Still, the PA did a great job of backing that. And then us as the players, we came in and did our job, and we get ready for the second half of the season.
We'll have continued coverage of the second half of the NBA season here on Eagle News. In New York, Tenny Sumagi, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thank you so much, Denny.
That made your day.
Yeah, that
Steph
made my
Curry.
day. Steph Curry, my love. That was actually very fun to watch. That's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. Join us again tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.